Good evening, everyone. And thanks for joining us here this evening. And we have people here in the room with us here in the Rochestown Lodge Hotel. And we're also streaming live on Facebook, and we'll have a recording of it available later on as well. So fraud awareness is a hugely important thing. We've got two really good experts, two of the best people in the country on it here with you tonight. So the video we'll have from this will be invaluable afterwards as well for all of our members. So I'm going to pass you straight over to Garda Niall Smith here first, who's the head of the fraud division on Garda Síochána. So thanks, Niall.
Thanks a million. Just like to say, fraud awareness, it's great to get an opportunity to come out and even on Facebook to anybody who's looking at it to give fraud awareness advice. I suppose Niall Smith's my own name, Detective Sergeant in GNECB, the Garda National Economic Crime Bureau, or the old GBFI, the Garda Bureau of Fraud Investigation. I suppose part of my role is fraud prevention and disruption. Also, I cover the assessment office, so basically any criminal complaint that's made to GNECB, we decide whether it's a criminal complaint or whether it's a civil complaint and advise victims or parties or businesses accordingly. And then another part of my role, we deal with the financial institutions in the Financial Services Liaison Office. Just next slide. So I have about 30 odd slides. I have about 30 minutes to talk. I do talk quickly. Some of the slides I will brush over quite quickly. I am hanging around at the end, so if anybody has any questions at the very end, if they want to ask me then, if we're doing questions as a group or whatever, or if somebody wants to come up and talk to me at the very end privately or whatever, there's no problem with that. I'll leave my details and stuff like that, my email address, and anybody can feel free to contact me or send me an email and I'll get back to them. The topics we're going to cover, so very briefly, I'll do just a small bit about the role of GNECB, a small bit on fraud overview, investment fraud, because I don't know if you've seen the news yesterday, investment fraud has been absolutely huge this year. Invoice redirection fraud, BEC, CEO fraud, it's very similar. Small bit on money mules, payment card fraud, phishing, vishing, smishing, so your text messages, etc., because that's massive. Advanced free fraud websites, so I'll show you some of those websites. I'll give you some advice then and some useful links that I use in order to see whether or not something is genuine or whether or not a website is legitimate. Just move on. So the role of GNECB, investigating prosecution of complex criminal offences and fraud-related offences, support fraud investigators outside the GNECB, so outside in divisions, districts around the country. And we also provide training for them. Fraud prevention and disruption, international liaison, so we deal with Europol, Interpol through crimes that are happening abroad, or the money's coming here, or vice versa, the money from here is going abroad. And then we also look at intelligence and trends and try and, I suppose, prevent up and coming scams before they get going. Next slide. So fraud, it's hard to kind of see that. Fraud is where a person is financially cheated by another person. Fraud occurs when an individual deceives another by inducing them to do something or to not do something that results in a financial loss to that person or to that business. The fraud can be committed either online, in person, or via correspondence. And like everything these days, it's all done electronically, it's all done online. Move on again. So who commits frauds? Career criminals move into this area. So during COVID, a lot of career criminals moved into it because people were working from home, so they couldn't do burglaries and stuff and robberies, etc., anymore. So a lot of criminals moved into it because they found out it was easier to do stuff from home, do stuff at a computer, harder to get caught. Organised criminal gangs. So believe it or not, there's big organised criminal gangs in this country. Some of their highest people are residing in this country and making massive amount of money through OCGs, organised criminal gangs. Opportunistics, chancers, bogus tradesmen. So these are the people that call and say that there's something on your roof, or I'll clean the tiles of your roof or clean your gutters, and then they say, oh, there's a cracked tile up there, you have a leak, or they remove a tile, etc., and they look for money off you. Service providers, employees, finance, legal, investment services. So we'll talk about that as well later on. Who are the victims? So victims, business people, professionals, elderly persons, vulnerable persons, students, teenagers. In fact, everyone can be a victim. Indeed, some of my own colleagues, even in fraud, have become a victim through certain scam. If they catch you at the right time, all they need is that one lucky person to respond to that DPD text, that on post text, and suddenly you're the one waiting for that parcel, that package to come in. You click on the link, and suddenly then you've been duped, and money can be taken from your account. Investment fraud. So this is where people are persuaded, induced to make investment decisions where the money invested is used for purposes not intended, or where there is no business opportunity at all. The investor is deceived into investing in something which is misrepresented. There are generally promises of fast, enormous returns. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, includes hard, aggressive selling, and can be seen to be endorsed by reputable business people and or celebrities. But this is without their knowledge. So a lot of people who be caught up in investment frauds would be people with money, people looking to invest, so people that are after getting retirement or redundancies and stuff like that. And they are often people who are duped into thinking they're making a good investment for the end or for their lifetime, and very often they're pressurized into seeing that they're getting a better return than they are somewhere legitimately, and the higher percentage return forces their hand, and then through sophisticated chats, etc., with the fraudster, they believe them to be genuine. As I said, they can often be endorsed by celebrities. So fake prospectus documents is a big thing that's sent around for investment opportunities. So fake documents from banks that are made to look like they're genuine investment opportunities. Again, they offer really high returns in order to, I suppose, make you more interested in them. They may use genuine employees from the bank. So they may Google AIB and look for a legitimate employee from the bank, and use that email address to dupe you into thinking that it's more believable or more genuine. There are funds being invested into cryptocurrency. I'm not going to delve down into too deep into cryptocurrency because it's a minefield and it's not my specialist expertise. Often then when they do tell you that the money's been invested into cryptocurrencies, they'll start sending you information to make you believe that your funds have grown, and show you all these fancy charts and graphs and pie charts, etc., and give you a log on to a fake website to make you think that it is being, I suppose, increasing in value the whole time. From January 2020 to May 2023, there's been 43.6 million stolen by fraudsters just from investment scams alone. This year alone, it's up 77%. And the average amount stolen from victims so far this year is just over 33,000. So that can show you how vast that problem is and how much traction it does gain when an investment scam does get going. It gets going rapidly around the country, and it spreads right across from one corner of the country to the other. Next slide. So that's what I'm saying. Them two infographs were sent out in the media yesterday. So investment fraud, 77% to date in 2023. It's gone up by over 18 million stolen alone this year. And almost 70% of the victims are aged over 40, 65% male, 35% female. Doesn't really matter, I suppose, in the gender profile, but just 70% of them are over 40. So they are targeting people that they believe have money. So often people go onto Google and literally just Google best investments, best rate investments, something along those lines. This was a website that was online for quite a while that was getting people, investireland.org. So that was a false website, comparison website. And people were just literally getting that off Google. It was coming back on a Google search. And they were going into it, Irish flag. As you can see, that's just a snapshot of it. You tick compare now, and it just brought you literally into a contact details page. You enter your contact details, and then suddenly 5-10 minutes later, you were given a phone call by the fraudster. Very sophisticated. Scammed a lot of people before we eventually had it taken down. But that's just an example of how people can be conned through a simple Google search. So I suppose this slide here, people probably know that fella on the left. Younger people might not know who he is. Mike Murphy's his name. He used to be an RTE presenter. There was a scam going around saying that he was endorsing basically an investment scam. And although it came out in March of this year and he came out publicly and said that nothing got to do with him, there was still a fella conned by that scam in July of this year in the west of the country to the tune of 100 grand, who believed it to be genuine because it was endorsed by Mike Murphy. So that just shows you the level of sophistication and things they go to. And once they get that right person, if they hit 50 doors, it's not literally 50 doors, but if they hit 50 people by electronic communication means and they get one person, as you can see, 100 grand. He was just happened to be blessed that we actually had the account in question flagged with the bank. So the bank actually put a stay on the transfer of his 100 grand. So he actually didn't lose his money. But he was one of the very lucky ones. On the right hand side then is just literally 2 prospectus documents. And it's just a little clip just to show you that they're very similar. The only difference really is the amounts in the percentage each year. And as you can see, there's great return on them. It's just to show you the same wording is used throughout them all. There might be different fonts, different colours, different banks, different investment firms used. But ultimately, all the cloned, false, fake documents that go out are all similar. They're all done the same way. They just change literally from either a different bank or a different font, different percentage, different amounts. That's literally it. But the wording and all, you can see bond breakdown performance and the wording after that. I'm not going to read it out, but it's literally the exact same wording. Just move on. I'm not going to go through all that. It's just how to avoid investment fraud. So don't invest until you get reliable financial and legal advice. Check the regulatory status of the company via the Central Bank of Ireland. So the Central Bank of Ireland, I'll show you in a minute. It's a great website. Wealth of information on it. If you're unsure about something, it would definitely be after literally just doing a simple open source search on Google. It'd be the next place I would check for any information. As I said, be aware of the celebrity endorsed investments. Be wary of fake wallets for storing your cryptocurrency. Not going to bog you down with cryptocurrency because we're here all night. Don't click on links for web pages that you don't know, and always check that the site is HTTPS secured. I'm not going to get too technical about that, but it's another added layer of protection to make sure that the website and the link could be genuine. But the fraudsters have a way to spoof that as well. So it's not really all it's built up to be. Never allow anyone, obviously, remote access to your computer or download any apps that can give others control of your computer, your device. We move on. Invoice redirection fraud. So sometimes it's better to put up a poster. It's very hard to see it. It's not clear. It's not clear on my laptop. All that basically means is that the fraudster will send an email to a business or to somebody. So say, for example, say the hotel here. So the hotel here has a contract for a company that fixes the lift. So the fraudster intercepts their communication, the email from the lift company to the hotel, seeking, say, their monthly service charge or whatever it is for maintenance of the lift. They then engage with the hotel, and the fraudster wants to change the bank accounts now to the new account number for the lift, supposedly the lift company. The person in the hotel here who deals with paying that company doesn't question it and just says the lift company has changed their bank account details, no problem at all. We'll send the €1,000 to their new bank. Often then it's not flagged until the legitimate company, the legitimate lift company will come back and say, you never paid me for last month or the last 2 months or the last 3 months. And they turn around and say, oh, should we have been paying you to your new bank account? And they'd be like, we never sent you any new bank account details. That's more or less simply explained, that's invoice redirection fraud. More common in, I suppose, businesses than individuals. Business email compromise. So again, it's the same thing. It's basically intercepting email and then having that communication with somebody and then basically trying to get them to pay money into another account. A point to note, I suppose, with all these, I suppose, scams is obviously there is a certain amount of sophistication and planning and stuff from the fraudster. They're very well rehearsed. They're very well in the know. But again, nothing can be done or nothing can be actioned without the human interaction or without the human actually performing or doing an action. So just because you've got a smishing text on your phone, is that going to hack into your phone? No, it's not. It's just going to sit in your phone until you delete it. If you click on the link, are you going down a ropey path then? Well, of course you are, because you're starting to engage with the fraudster. Okay, once you click that link. If you download something that you wouldn't normally download, but they've asked you to download it, are you on dodgy ground then? Of course you are, because you're doing something. They can't act unless you act after them. So you're better off not acting at all. So if you get that message and you're unsure about it, delete it. If you get that message and it comes into your normal thread, which are messages from AIB, I'll go through that again in a minute. But again, if you're unsure, contact your bank, go down to your bank, contact somebody you deal with or somebody you know, or contact the guards. Don't just think, I'll just click this link and I'll follow this through, because you're probably going to more than likely get scammed. Next slide, one crime, many names. So CEO fraud, BEC fraud, it's all very similar terms, similar names. CEO fraud is basically where they just, the CEO, the sort of fraudster impersonates the CEO or the head person of the business. So like the owner of the hotel, and they'll say to a junior employee that they need, sometimes it's Google Pay cards or Apple Pay cards, and that they're in a meeting and they can't come to the phone, and the junior employee feels obliged nearly to go and do this, or to transfer the money, or to buy the prepaid cards and hand it over because he's been asked by a superior boss to do it. They don't tend to question it. That's all really CEO fraud is. It's another form of business email compromise. So just in terms of getting an email and spot the difference. So you can see here there's 3 examples of email addresses. And I suppose we just use this a lot just to point out to people that often when you see an email coming in, you don't tend to question it when it comes in from a certain name, because you're used to getting emails off them daily or weekly or monthly, and you don't actually look at the address and go, is it from Niall Smith? Or, you know, you can see the difference in the emails if you look at them closely. But would you spot that on a normal time when I'm not pointing these things out to you? You just go, oh, that's a genuine email. That's the way it comes in. And just, you know, respond to it or click on the link or send the money. So it's just to be a bit more vigilant ourselves. In the first one there, you can see the second line is where the misprints are. So on the second line, the second L in Riley is an exclamation mark. And the next one then, accounts. On the second line, it's spelled with an M. And then in the last one then, it's a bit harder to spot, but after the @ symbol, it's an I instead of a J. It's just things to be mindful yourselves that it's not normally seen or copped. You tend to just reply to that email because it looks very similar to the ones you usually get, whether you be in a business or whether individually, and you're used to getting an email from a certain person. It's just something to be mindful of. So just the next slide is a bit on money mules. So I suppose I heard on the radio, money mules are being recruited as young as 14. So we've tried to engage with the central bank in terms of young people being able to open bank accounts, etc. Because really and truly, anybody who has a bank account can be used as a money mule. I suppose everybody probably heard of the term money mule and knows what a money mule is. They're recruited basically to move money through their account to wash the proceeds of crime, to wash the money literally. Most people, I suppose graphic people that are targeted are students, particularly I suppose when they go and start in college around September-ish time. It can be done very easily through Snapchat, social media. Students, unfortunately, some of them are down and they need the extra few pound. Very often they might not even receive the money that they're promised. But very often they're the people who are, I suppose, that can be easily identified by us because the money is going through their account. And they're very often the people that end up being prosecuted are the money mules, and I suppose the person who hires the money mules or the herder. So the herder is the man in control of the money mules. Very often it's very hard to try and identify that person, and it's very often the money mule is the person who is arrested and prosecuted for it. So I suppose that's the kind of message that went out in the media today. About it being harder to get a mortgage and to travel, etc., because we're trying to, I suppose, warn them and I suppose advise them of the risks that they're taking by letting this money go through their account. Payment card fraud. So type of fraud involves the use of stolen or counterfeit payment cards to make direct purchases or cash withdrawals. It also includes the use of stolen card data to buy items over the phone or via the internet. We do see a lot of it as well, payment card fraud. Very often a lot of it's not reported because the banks will just refund customers when they say, I didn't use my card that time, that's not my card. And it can't be proved to the contrary whether or not they did make that transaction or not. But it does happen, so it's just to, I suppose, point it out to you. The next few slides are all dismission, vision and phishing. So it's commonly called account takeover, in which the criminals pose as a bank, service provider, delivery company or government agency in a bid to gain access to the victim's bank account or smart device. So phishing is basically just email. So it involves the criminals making contact by email and can take a number of forms. Email may appear from a reputable company. However, when you click on the email or attachment or the link to email, malicious software and malware can be downloaded onto your PC or device, allowing the criminal to track activity and identify personal or financial information for fraudulent purposes. It can happen to individuals and companies. The criminal can also use temptation as a means to extract money from you by pretending that you have won or inherited a large sum of money to convince you to provide personal or banking details or to transfer money. Believe it or not, that still does happen. So I'm trying to think where he was from now. He was definitely outside this jurisdiction, but he got an email from AIB Mortgage Bank in Sandyford, Dublin 4, with a certificate thinking he had inherited something crazy like 35 million euro. Even though this fellow was well educated in a different country, he thought he was entitled to this inheritance, was sent a very bad certificate, I would say, with credentials on it saying he was entitled to this money. And he sent the person he was involved with, the fraudster, he sent the fraudster anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 in certain sums that he thought he was going to have to pay in order for different fees for him to gain access to this inheritance that he was due from this long lost relative that he never knew, never met. And you're kind of reading this kind of going, does this happen? Can I believe this? But it actually does go on. So I suppose by saying that to you about the inheritance scam, people often say, that doesn't go on. Like, this happened, I'd say probably in August. This came into us from through the Europol, saying that this fella had paid money to this particular bank account in Ireland, thinking he was basically going to inherit this 35 odd million from an AIB mortgage bank that he was due. So there are some stupid people still out there. Vision smission. So apologies that I'm picking on PTSB here, but it could be any bank. So vision or smission, vision is literally your voice. So somebody rings you up, cold calls you. Smission is your text messages. I tend to find when I get one text message or one voice call, I tend to get 3 or 4. So I'll nearly get them for a period of 3 or 4 days. and I do get them. And I look at the number and I'm like, will I answer it? Won't I answer it? I answer it and I nearly wait to see, does anyone say hello first? And it's nearly a waiting game because sometimes it's a number I don't have, and other times there's nothing, and then it just goes dead. Or 5-10 seconds later, I go hello, and then it's a recording you're listening to, and I just go cancel. Very hard to do anything with them because the numbers can be spoofed. So in a phone call, there are some websites that you can put things up on that will say whether or not other people have gotten scam calls by them, but they're not really that great because one number can be spoofed today and it can be spoofed again next week, and again it's happening so frequently. I suppose getting back to this mission, and people would often say to me, particularly with this text message here, it says PTSB and it starts off with PTSB in capital letters, and I'm with PTSB, and I get a genuine text message from PTSB every month to say, this is my balance on my credit card, or I'm due a credit card payment, or this is my direct debit, or this is my monthly payment for whatever. And they often say to me, well, how come that fraudulent submission text message ended up in my genuine thread of my PTSB text messages, which makes it seem more legitimate or more genuine to me? That's nothing to do with you or nothing to do with the fraudster. That's to do with your smartphone and your phone. So your phone is no longer a phone, it's a mini computer. So it has a brain, okay? It knows. People often say you look at stuff on Facebook and you have cookies and you accept cookies. What does that mean? It brings up stuff that you like. So I often do. I'd be talking to my wife about something at home and then I look at my Facebook and suddenly what we're talking about is after coming up here on my Facebook. And I'm like, Jesus, is it after hearing me or what's going on? So your phone is actually, it is a mini computer with a brain inside it. So when that text message came in, that filtered and said, oh, that's something from PTSB. We'll put that into the PTSB genuine text message thread. So it's not the fraudsters that sophisticated that he's placed that message directly into your genuine thread. It can be the same with AIB, it can be the same with Bank of Ireland. It's literally your phone is processing that itself and recognising that PTSB and going, that's where that message belongs. So don't worry about it. If you didn't click on that link, nothing can happen. If it's in there with all the genuine text message, because you're keeping that thread of text messages, nothing can happen to your phone once you don't click on that link. I think I've explained that without reading that bit. These are just some examples of advanced fee fraud websites that I just thought I'd put up just to give you an overview. So advanced fee fraud is basically a loan. So these are false websites that are advertising loans. So they're very pertinent, I suppose, this time of the year because people will be looking for money for Christmas. They appeal to people with bad credit history. I suppose people who feel that they can't get a loan legitimately from financial institutions. They literally go on, they look at loan websites. These all have the right kind of, I suppose, jargon and stuff that will appeal to people that think they can't basically get a loan off a legitimate credit union or a legitimate financial institution. So I suppose the thing to know, I suppose, with the last two, so sorry, the one previous to that is Galway Money. These websites are now taken down. So I suppose the 083 number is one to watch out for. So when we took down Galway Money, the next slide, they basically just, it's like whack-a-mole. They go from one to the other. So Galway Money turned into Donegal Money. Same phone number, 083. You can't really read it there, but it's in the top on the line in red. And it's literally like firefighting. Every day you knock one off, 10 more pop up. It's just to show you that they are out there, they are preying on people, and people are unfortunately, I suppose, buying into it. Oh, you know, I applied for a €15,000 loan there and 3 years of bad credit history, but I had to pay €995 up front for taxes. And then I paid that, and then they looked for more, they looked for 200 and something euro. Before you know where you are, they could have paid 2 or 3 grand. I think they're going to get this 15 grand loan, and they're never going to see this 15 grand loan. But sometimes they actually believe that they will, and you're kind of trying to persuade them, don't send them any more money, like you're never going to get it. I suppose just go on to the next. So this is just what I was talking about in terms of the Central Bank of Ireland website. If I had a live feed, I'd go into the internet and show you physically how to get there. But this is very useful information that the central bank put up in relation to unauthorised firms. So firms that aren't regulated by the central bank. And you can see there some of the different names, I suppose, that are coming up. But there's that Donegal money one that came in there on the 13th of October. And that's, I suppose, updated really regularly. So I think the last time I looked at it today, there was this thing on from the 10th of November. So it's done very good. So if you see something you think, oh, I'm a bit suspicious about that, I don't think that's a genuine firm, or it's a genuine investment or loan, or they also put up information about cloning different sites. So if it's cloning like JP Morgan, if it's cloning AXA was one there recently, yeah, that's on that list. Investment managers. There was one recently for AIB. It's all literally on that website, and you can click in on them. And if you click in on the next one, you just click on the next slide there. So that's what it says then in relation to the Donegal money. So it gives you literally the website, the email addresses that they were sending stuff from, and the 083 phone number that they were using. So it's I suppose not a lot of people know that the central bank's website is actually that good, but it actually is invaluable now for me doing my work and looking at stuff there. And we do liaise with them, and I do get emails from them about these websites and things before they actually post them up on their website. But it is a useful place for, I suppose, individuals and people to go to look for that information as well. I suppose a few slides here just about a small bit of advice, and I will read through most of this. Monitor bank account and credit card spending. Notify bank of suspicious transactions immediately when you're aware of them. Ask them to recall, so the quicker the better. So if you're after sending some money, or some money's after arriving into your account that you're suspicious over, the best way to deal with that is actually contact your bank or contact your financial institution, because the quicker you get onto them and the quicker they do that recall, the quicker you will actually get the return on your money and get your money back. Pick up the phone and contact the entity independently. So what we mean by that is, don't just drop the call and ring the number back that rang you. Drop the call and ring the number that you actually have for the bank or for the financial institution. Never share personal banking details, PIN numbers, passwords with unknown persons online by text, SMS, phone, or any other way. I know that sounds very common, but there was a scam going around a certain while ago where taxis were being sent to people's addresses, and people were actually giving them their AIB ATM card, or another bank. It was AIB. I think it's well known it was AIB, but they were actually giving them their bank card and writing their PIN number on the envelope to an unknown person calling to their door who was pretending to be from AIB, and they were going off and literally going to the bank machine and clearing out their account. And like, you know, it sounds like, you know, would you give somebody the keys of your new car to go and test drive it? Well, you stand there like, no, you wouldn't, like, but there you go, you have my bank card and my PIN number, and yeah, you bring it back to the bank for me to make sure my account's all right. Like, it sounds unbelievable, but they actually did catch a lot of people with it. Have good antivirus protection on all computers. Update your antivirus and computer operating systems. Have good control in place in your business. Only allowed access is required. Be aware of employees, family members, and friends with addiction issues. I suppose we have seen it before where employees, maybe they're not employees themselves, but they've gotten jobs in, say, kind of financial institutions in order to see, I suppose, how the business runs, how it operates, what they can take from that then. Or perhaps then they're going out with somebody, or they're married to somebody who works in a financial institution. And I suppose it's great with COVID and all that people were working from home a lot. But what is being going on at home, and who's watching who at home when they're working? Or, you know, you're writing notes at home beside your computer that you wouldn't normally leave around at home. because you'd be in work and they'd be left in work. So just be mindful of that. Or if you're renting rooms or stuff like that and you're not really too familiar with people who are living in the house, etc., etc., it does go on, and we have seen it. And I suppose people have been arrested that have been working for financial institutions and have been involved in crime, because they're taking, I suppose, scripts home of how genuine employees deal with customers. So they're getting the scripts straight from source. So that's how sophisticated they can be. Advice to staff, I suppose, in branches, etc. Challenge suspect transactions. Don't apologise. I suppose it's the same as somebody coming in and, passing you a note or something and you holding it up or you checking it. Satisfy yourself first. Don't be apologising to people. Follow company policy and procedures. If you think something is wrong, probably is your gut instinct. Don't be afraid to consult with your supervisors. Check again. Make that phone call. So like I said earlier on, don't be afraid to make that phone call to the boss, the CEO, whatever the case may be. What are your company's views on losing a customer as opposed to losing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pound? Advice to management, I suppose, tone from the top, set the standard, robust procedures for payments made and received. Training for all staff, so training is very important. Up-to-date IT systems. What your company looks like to a person on the street and on the internet. And discipline, so they're all very self-explained there. Just conscious of time. Useful links, so I put up, obviously, the Garda.ie website, some useful things on fraud there. Fraud Smart, so that's the Banking Payments Federation of Ireland. The central bank website that I went through, the Citizens Information, and then the CCPC, the Customer and Consumer Protection Council has some stuff there on their website also. Thanks very much for your attention, for listening. That's my email address, is just gnecb.fraudpreventionoffice, so .fpo@garda.ie. So if anyone has any questions or any comments or wants to contact me there, they can. And like I said, I'll be around at the end for any questions, or if anybody wants to come to me themselves, there's no problem at all. Thanks very much.
Good evening, all. My name is Ciara Magennis, and I'm Head of SEPA Payments at Payac. I'm going to go through my presentation now, which is going to be a little repetitive because I'm going to be covering spoofing, phishing and smishing, which Detective Niall Smith has covered. But what I am going to focus on are the actions that you can take. So maybe just to focus a little bit on experiences that I've seen in the past 12 months with credit unions, where their members are reporting that they've been a victim of fraud. I'm going to try and just to give you some, I suppose, a feeling of what we've seen this year in particular, because there's been a real increase in fraud. And I suppose what I might start with, Michael, if you just want to move on to the next slide. Okay, so spoofing is essentially where it looks like you're actually being contacted by a trusted organisation. And again, there's a link there in an SMS which will bring you to a website which you think is genuine. We've seen a lot of this earlier this year with credit unions, where they received a link in an SMS and they were being rushed to take an action because their account was going to be inactivated or blocked, and they needed to reactivate their account. So they were trying to do the right thing. They were clicking on a link, and they were being brought to what they thought was their credit union website. And this website was very sophisticated. It looked, to all intents and purposes, like it was the credit union. The credit union logo was there, and credit unions were being duped into thinking that they were on their own credit union website, and were giving away details. And what's important to remember at all times is never to give away personal details. Never give away a 4-digit PIN. You'll never be asked by your bank for a 4-digit PIN. I know we hear this on Fraud Smart, on the ads on the radio, but really you're the only person who should ever know your PIN. Don't share it with anyone. So maybe just moving on to the next slide. So just in terms of what to look out for, I know Niall has touched on some of this. What I'm going to just mention here again is just the fact that what these fraudsters are doing is they're targeting a large audience and hoping by using certain techniques of rushing you, making it sound like it's really, really urgent that you do this. We're all trying to do the right thing. We're all trying to pay a bill that we think is overdue, or we're trying to take an action where we think that, you know, we're going to be put out by an account being blocked or whatever it might be. So just stop and think. Don't take an immediate action. And think, is this genuine or is it not? And do question it, and take if you do feel that this is something that does require an action and you're not keen to delete it right away, make a note and contact the actual website. So make sure that you're typing in the exact web address rather than just clicking on a link. Let's move on to the next one there, Michael. Yeah, so again, just about knowing the signs. We've already seen there just in previous slides how you can look at spelling errors and so on. The web addresses. Stop. Don't just assume that it's genuine. Check it yourself. Type in the link. Go to the genuine source. And if you need to, pick up the phone, make a call. And just moving on to phishing then. Again, this is where the fraudsters are targeting people, and a large number of people, in the hopes that they're going to be able to just catch one person. And it's so easy. You could find yourself that maybe you were dealing with Amazon Prime and you found that you had clicked on a link inadvertently and you were paying an additional €7 a month to be a member of Amazon Prime. And then just at that time, within a day or two, you're unlucky enough to get an SMS that mentions Amazon Prime, and you think that that's something related to an activity that you had a couple of days ago, and you'll click on a link, and it's a link to a website which looks genuine, or you get somebody contacts you and you feel that you're in contact and you're still working through the same issue. It happens that it's one person at a particular point in time that might think, oh, hang on a second, this is genuine, and in actual fact, it's fraudsters that they're actually dealing with. So just be very, very mindful of suspicious emails that you might get, or ones where they have generic greetings, dear customer or account holder. And sometimes where they might actually have genuine details. They might have your own name, where you're wondering, well, perhaps this is genuine. If they have my own details, they're contacting me, when in actual fact they might have got those details surreptitiously and are contacting you. So we've mentioned already, don't click on any links, and don't be rushed into anything either. If you feel that you're being put under pressure, step back and think about what's being asked of you, question it, and go to the genuine source. Never respond to unsolicited emails or give away security details. Make sure that it's a genuine source, as we've mentioned here, and don't allow yourself to be rushed. I'm repeating myself, but these are all really important things at the moment in time when you're going through and you're seeing an SMS. I have on my phone, I was just mentioning earlier there before we started, on my phone, every time I get an SMS, I'm actually saving it to a contact on my phone called Crank Calls. And I started this 2 years ago. And there are reams and reams of mobile phone numbers. I know that I don't have an account at AIB, so I know it's a fraudulent email when they're asking me to contact them. So I just save that on my phone. It's the amount of contacts that we're all getting via SMS, emails. It's just, we're being bombarded by it at the moment. And that's the tactic that they use. They bombard in the hopes that they're going to catch a couple of individuals at a vulnerable time. Okay. Ensuring that your antivirus software is up to date on your devices, and not to forward emails as well, or click on links. And to check your current account credit union statements regularly. And if you have any doubts, phone up your credit union and check that everything is in order. Next slide there. Okay, so vishing again, we've mentioned again, this is where a fraudster can phone you or claiming to be from a bank or a credit union. Earlier this year, we came across quite a number of instances where credit unions were contacted by somebody purporting to be from their credit union. They were Irish. They sounded genuine. Most members were saying it was a young guy, and he had some of my details already. He knew my name. So you're lulled into a false sense of security. So again, if you're unsure, end the call and find the telephone number of your credit union and ring them directly if you have any doubts at all. And these are the variations now. Detective Smith has gone through a lot of this already, but it's really just to watch out for all these various different variations. So fraud on your account. You need to make sure that you're not giving away details where a fraudster could have the ability to go and transfer money out of your account. So if you're giving away your security details, a fraudster can mimic that they're you. They can go in, they can access your account, and they can withdraw funds. And we've seen this year where where that's actually happened, where credit union members have given away all of secure enough details that a fraudster has the ability to be able to access their account and make payments out of their account and send them to Revolut or send them to Prepaid Financial, which essentially is a prepaid card. And as soon as those funds are received by the fraudster, they're gone. I mean, as soon as they hit the account, they're gone. And there is a mechanism within the payment scheme to be able to recall payments. You can do that. But if a fraudster is sitting there waiting for those funds, they'll be gone and they'll, be buying cryptocurrency. It's in and out, before you can think. So the recall process is good in an instance which Detective Smith mentioned there, where an account had already been flagged at a bank, and in that case, when a recall for a payment is received, those funds can be returned because there's a block and the fraudster can't access the funds, and that original payment can be returned back to the sending institution. But really, in most cases, once a payment is gone, it's irrevocable because the fraudster is literally just waiting for those monies to come in. And we also need to, I suppose, be mindful as well that large payments are made out of accounts. These fraudsters are smart. They, a lot of the payments that we saw, the fraudulent payments that we saw at the beginning of the year were for like €2,900 because they were thinking, well, maybe there's a limit of 3,000. So if I make 3 payments of 2,950, maybe that'll kind of slip in under the radar. The fraudsters have managed to, dupe people and make payments on behalf of members by having access to their security details, that some credit unions have been out by tens of thousands because a fraudster has had a number of hours over the course of an evening to go in and just keep moving money out of accounts. And it's very, very hard to get those funds back because if you've given the details, and overnight you're thinking, gosh, I wonder now, was that genuine? And first thing in the morning you think, I'm going to contact the credit union. There are cycles overnight where payments are processed and those payments are gone. By the time you go and you contact your credit union at 9 o'clock in the morning and the payment is recalled, that recall, that payment's not going out until the following morning. At which stage it's likely that those funds are gone, unfortunately. So it's really to be very mindful not to click on any links. But if you do, to be careful and to contact your credit union immediately and alert them. They can then contact us, and we have contacts at all the various different financial institutions, and we can seek to recall those funds if they're still there in the account. So again, just be wary of unsolicited phone calls. Don't divulge any personal information. Don't be, I suppose, lulled into a sense of security if somebody contacts you and they do have some details. Question, is this genuine? And if it is somebody purporting to be from the credit union, you can end the call and you can phone the credit union and follow up. Look up the organisation's phone number. We're just talking about the credit union now, but in any situation, because we have seen serious issues with large volumes of fraudulent cases where revenue are concerned, e-flow, on post, all of these ones that I'm sure you've probably seen in coming in, usually by SMS, and you're rushing to do the right thing. You're wondering, I used the toll last week. You did use the toll last week, but maybe I didn't forget, or maybe I forgot to make the payment, or maybe the direct debit that I have set up for e-flow isn't working anymore, and you're quickly to react. So just step back, think about it, and phone the company directly. And if the call is a genuine call, then the companies like e-flow and Revenue will be very happy to take a call from you, knowing that what you're doing is being vigilant and not clicking on any links. Just the next one there, Michael. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is a combination. So smishing is a combination of SMS and phishing. So where a fraudster sends messages randomly to mobile phones, purporting to be from a reputable organisation, asking you to update, reactivate your account. Again, the intention here is to alarm you and to get you to react quickly, and that if you don't respond to this quickly, there will be negative consequences. You don't want to, have a fine or have your account blocked. So it's all with a sense of urgency that you need to react. So again, question that, and do contact either your bank or your credit union or whatever company it is that's contacting you, asking for an urgent action to question it. And I think just on the last slide here, it's just some key advice. Yeah. So, just the previous one there. Yeah. So don't validate a texter by using a phone number. Don't download any software that a fraudster might ask you to download, because in that way they can have access to your phone and they can then take control. So, don't be rushed. Take your time. And as I mentioned before, don't ever give your 4-digit PIN code. You're the only person who should ever have that. Nobody else. And nobody else, no bank or credit union will ask you for that PIN code ever. And I think we've touched on all of the other points several times. So again, don't click on a link, attachment or image that you receive. Make sure that it's legitimate. So there was a bit of repetition there because I think Detective Smith covered off a lot of that, but it was really just to give you a sense of, it's not really to alarm you, but just to question anything that you receive coming in via SMS with a link. An email that you receive, even if you feel that it's genuine, just stop and think first. And bear in mind that, as I mentioned, the fraudsters they're targeting people with that sense of urgency, knowing that out of 100 there might be one or two, and the one or two could be profitable enough for them to have gone to the effort of developing a website because they could have access to an account and move thousands. So that's what it is. They're opportunistic, but we've seen just in this past year that credit union members have really been hit. And in many cases, there's a lot of emotion attached to this. So you might have heard of this Dear Mom SMSs where, not everybody has a child that's working picking fruit out in Australia, but there might be one or two that do. So when they get a text saying, I've lost my phone, a friend is, I'm contacting you from a friend's phone, send money to this account number. Some people genuinely think, I need to send money to John or Mary or whatever. They need money urgently, and they're going and they're making payments to fraudulent accounts. And then when they do contact their son or daughter, they find out it wasn't them. So these are, I suppose, they're opportunistic, and they will use every opportunity to fraudulently get people to make payments. So just to be very, very mindful of everything that everything we've gone through tonight in terms of questioning emails and SMSs. So thank you very much. Here, if you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you very much to Ciara and to Niall there for their insights. If any of you have any questions, please do jump out. Unfortunately, everything that Ciara and Niall have talked about tonight has actually happened in the credit union the last 12 to 24 months. So we've one question there. Owen, I'll hand you the microphone just to make sure we can pick you up for people logged in.
Hi, I'm a member of the credit union, and I'm also a member of the Dún Laoghaire Older Persons Council. All these issues are coming up with us very regularly. Just a general point. First of all, I want to thank the credit union for putting this on. Very, very useful, and it's a credit to you. The second thing I'll say, and this is more aimed at the major banks, I find that the banks are migrating people to technology far too quickly. A lot of, especially older people or people that might be going a little bit senile or whatever, they're just not ready for these levels of technology. And it's a real problem, and people are afraid, people are worried. And I come across it time and time again now, people in their 60s and 70s and 80s, and they're really not ready for all this technology so quickly. And they're used to their checkbook, and they're used to their cash in hand, and it's migrating too quickly. And I know it has to happen, and I know it's the way things are going, but it's leading to a lot of problems, and a lot of elderly people being taken advantage of.
Yeah, look, I think it's a very good point, and it's always great to have somebody to talk to at a counter when you can go in and actually talk to somebody if you have a problem. And just like we had an elderly person came in, who weren't actually a member at the time, but it came in to open an account, so we opened an account and did all the normal things, and then shortly afterwards they were in looking for a loan. And when we talked about the member and looked for the backup documentation, it turned out he'd been caught among investment scams, and he'd already put across a lot of money into that, and he was looking for another 5,000 so he could get his money back. But it was just a continuation of scam. But by actually having people in the branch that he could talk to, we looked at the documentation. We said, actually, something wrong here. We contacted the guards in Dún Laoghaire who went out to the member, and we explained to the member, we think there's something wrong here, but it got guards out. And it was very sophisticated. The documentation looked really, really good. It was just, but it's that person-to-person thing is very, very important.
I would just like to thank the credit union for still offering a fairly simple, basic method of banking and depositing and money. And long may it last. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. And while we are moving forward into current accounts, and we have all of the online services and the debit cards and all that, we're seeing the fraud happening both on the current accounts and on the savings accounts as well, on the share accounts as well. So it's really important to be very vigilant on both. Again, another one, the hi mum text. We had a case of that I think it was only about 6 or 8 weeks ago, where a daughter in Australia the person's daughter was in Australia. The fraudster sent a text to a random number. Hi mum, I've lost my phone. This is my new number. Will you save it? And and then the next text was, things are going really bad for me today, and I need to make a payment, but my new number won't be up on the bank system here for another 3 days. Can you send a payment? And that member actually came into the counter and instructed a payment to go out with the details. So it wasn't even actually online. It was the member had the text from the daughter, came into the counter, set up a credit transfer and did it manually at the counter. And we saw this a second when she came in then for a second one, and on the second one again we began to flag it. So we got some of it back, some of the money back for her, but we didn't get all of it back again. As Ciara said, once they get the money in the account, they're waiting at the ATM machines to take the cash out. So we sometimes we get lucky. We had another person there with the SMS phishing text where they clicked on the link and they gave the one-time passcode across to the scammers. And this person gave the passcode about 8 or 10 times because there is a time delay and they have to get in within a couple of minutes. But the scammer stayed on the phone and held the person on the phone. Now, in that case, we got half of the money back for that member, but the other half was gone, and that was €10,000, so we got about 5,000 back. So they're huge amounts. And as people of all ages as well, so it's not necessarily older people as well. We've seen some younger people getting caught out of it as well. So everybody does need to remain vigilant. But it's so sad to see it when a member's account has been subject to a fraud. We had another account in the credit union which was fraudulently set up with fraudulent documentation that was used to scam a person in Tipperary out of money. So again, and this is how sophisticated it is. This person was able to hack into the email between this person in Tipperary and a solar panel company and change the bank account details to the credit union. And then this money came in and then they had it wiped out of the credit union. And by a couple of weeks later, before the supplier realised they didn't get paid, obviously came back to us, contacted the guards, but money was well gone. And those ATM withdrawals were done in Amsterdam. They weren't even done in Ireland. And that's how sophisticated this is and how vigilant we do need to make sure that we just... and the key thing is always ask why. Question everything. If you're being asked to do something in a hurry, ask why. And I think Ciara said it. I think one of the most important things we do, and like we had a supplier ourselves in a credit union looking for payment 3 or 4 days ago because they hadn't got paid already. But one of the things we do with every payment that goes out, we physically ring the person to verify the bank details that we have on file as being the correct one, especially when things come in across an email. So the reason why we hadn't actually paid this supplier was because we hadn't been able to contact that person by phone. So we won't make that payment until actually we make that contact. And that's what everybody needs to do. It's an extra step, just takes a couple of minutes, but it's a really important step. If someone rings you, just drop the phone, I'll ring you back in a few minutes. Paul, we'll just get the microphone to you there, Paul, first, thanks.
You say ring back in quickly, but am I not correct in saying that you actually should wait for a minute or two because sometimes they...
Ring back to, sorry, actually, good clarification, Paul. Ring back the number that you have for the credit union, or if it's the bank, for the bank. Don't ring a number that you've received on a text message. So if you're dealing with the credit union for years and years, you know the credit union's number, or even if you don't know it off, go into your own phone book and check that number and ring the number that you have, because then you're ringing back to genuine business. Because what we have seen is cases where the number is spoofed. So someone will get a text message and it'll be our number, it'll be on the text message, or it'll get a phone call and it'll be our number that's on the phone call as well, because they can spoof the numbers, they can spoof the email addresses, and it's actually relatively easy to do that as well. Anyone other questions there?
Just a comment, I suppose the number's always on the back.
Sorry, just get the microphone there.
Sorry, just a comment. I think the numbers are always on the back of the cards as well. Any debit card has the contact number on it, on the back of it.
Yeah, the 24/7
yeah,
numbers.
so if you can't, if you're not near a device where you can look to find the number, to find the website, just check the back of the card.
And look at the other thing, I suppose, that's important that we haven't talked about, as saying the phishing and the smishing and the fraudsters, is your passwords. Now, none of us like passwords and remembering the passwords. And if you have a complex password, it is hard to remember. But there's easier ways to remember passwords. Think about it, rather than thinking of a password with uppercase and lowercase, think about a passphrase. And it could be the first line of a song that you know. And that could have 7 or 8 words in it. And that's really hard for hackers to break. Or it could be their second name if you have 3 children, it could be John, Mary, Joe, and then a dog's name. But it's just extending it out. So something that's easy to remember, not these uppercase and lowercase. You do need to have them in it. But it's something that's long. What people should use, and this is not necessarily easy to get used, is password managers. So I only actually remember one password myself, and that's the password to my password manager. and then I have two-factor authentication set up to the phone, so I get a code. So every other password I have is saved in that manager. I don't even know the passwords, and they're long random passwords. So every time I need to go into something, I go into my password manager and do it. And where that really came in beneficial for me a couple of years ago was actually even before I was using password managers. I used to vary every password by a website. But LinkedIn, I don't know how many of you are aware of LinkedIn. It's a sort of a business networking site, and that was hacked. And when that was hacked, passwords were part of that hack. So I got an email from whoever bought this sort of list of the breach information saying your password is X. And I was looking at that is my password. So they had my password. But LinkedIn was the only site I'd use that password on. Whereas if I had used that site on my banking and on my email, they could have got into my email and seen everything else. So by actually having that site, so I knew, so straight away when I knew, I said, actually, well, this is serious enough. But I knew I wasn't compromised at all. So because of that. But that's how quick it is and how easy. So if they get one breach of your security, they try your email, they try your banking. All of a sudden, especially if they get into your email, it's game over. They'll have everything that you have.
Sorry, is there any advice for people who are safety precautions for people who very regularly make transactions over the phone or online and divulge all their credit card details, which is a very, very normal practice that most people with a credit card that buy stuff online do it. So you're asked for is a MasterCard or a Visa, what's your card number, what's the expiry date, what's the security code. So by doing that alone, you're giving away all the information that's needed for somebody to make purchases or make transactions without actually having the physical card, because they have the number, they have the expiry date, and they have the security code. So is there any advice or precautions you can offer to people in relation to that?
The main piece of advice I'd look at on that, so firstly, is depending who your credit card is, can you have alerts set up on your card? So every time there's a payment that you get a text message. So every time I do a payment on my credit union debit card, I get a text message of what that payment was and the balance that's remaining. So if somebody fraudulently loses my card, I'm going to get a text message of it. So that's where it's been breached, and you find out very quickly, because at least if you find out quickly, you can ring and cancel a card. But one of the points that you're raising there, which is really important, and I've got caught. The company who I was renewing my insurance with was Aviva. So Aviva would have very good practices in place. You know, they'd be meeting all the what's the debit card fraud requirements. The PCI, they'd be PCI compliant. So that's the compliance for debit and credit cards. But the person on the phone mightn't be a genuine person. So when the company might have the best processes in place, the individual on the phones, because he could write the number on a piece of paper, go home that night and start using that number. So the best way on that, because it is very hard to prevent fraud where there's a malicious actor somewhere in it. So it's alerts, monitoring your balance and catching it as quick as you can. That is probably the best thing you can do.
In that regard, why do the central bank or whoever the regulators are not enforce the credit card providers to actively promote and offer that service of we will give you a message every time a transaction occurs? That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Yeah, one of the things that has happened I think it was 2 years ago, came in, was called secure customer authentication. So now typically anytime you do a large value transaction online, it'll come up, you'll have to put in a code that'll come to your banking app to do it. So that's multi-factor authentication. That's helping cutting down on a lot of that fraud. And again, that was mandated by Europe that had to be put in place. And it's a very good protection for people. We still see examples of it where people still give that code to a third party that they don't know. But if you protect that code and you do that transaction online with that code, it is very hard at that point in time to be cut out. So that is a very positive thing that they have done. SEPA Instant is coming in next year, and Ciara is an expert on SEPA Instant. I'll have to read up on it shortly, but I know one of the things that are coming in SEPA Instant. So if you think about it, it does what it says on the tin. It's instant payments, which means I'll be able to do a credit transfer to your account, and you'll have it within, I think it's 3 minutes, or it's a very short space of time. So 10 seconds. So there's enhanced security going to be brought into that to protect people's accounts at the banks.
But that's all very fine to say that in a situation like this. But there's not much point in somebody who does get scammed, or not scammed, it's just somebody uses their credit card information from a purchase they made online or over the phone, and they go into the credit card company or contact them looking for their money to be returned, and the credit card company starts telling me, like what you're after telling me there, do you know you could have done X, Y, and Z to stop that happening?
And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this tonight as well, is to try and start building the awareness, and it's education as well is such an important thing, and ourselves and other financial institutions need to do more with our members and push out more messages to keep driving home that message that we're all the best security protections in the world, but they can all be compromised as well. And like we're seeing it, and like the security is really good, but we're still seeing people coming in and losing large sums of money. And so we need to do more on the training side as well. And the central bank need to do more on getting those messages. I know the instant alerts, that's what I find the best. I look at every time I see a text message coming in for me for my balance, and I check it, and that's the one way I monitor my account. And so you should look at that. Can you get that? Because at least you know straight away. The biggest problem is when it's going on for 2 or 3 weeks and your account has been drained. Like we had an example of a member who was in Spain on their holidays, and they gave their card over to pay for their food. Now, you should never give your card to anybody, but again, there's different cultures in different places. You wouldn't really be asked for the card too much in Ireland. I don't see it going on too much. But he gave the card over, the person went behind the counter to process the payment, and a couple of days later, all the money was gone out of the account because they cloned his card. You know, and these were all the different things. So and that's where we just need to be doing more education, more training to try and help people. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Ciara? Because you deal with it on the cold face at times quite a bit.
Yeah,
You just grab the microphone.
Yeah, hello?
Yeah, it should be okay, yeah.
Maybe I think it is a good opportunity just to mention as SEPA Instant. Because that is coming down the tracks, and this time next year, credit unions will be able to receive SEPA instant payments, and as Michael said, they're payments that can be received within 10 seconds, and there's a maximum value of €100,000. So we're really into a different payments environment altogether. But a confirmation of payee is a new service, and it's going to be available initially for SEPA Instant, but it's going to be rolled out to all payments. So payments as we receive today will all be, you will be able to use this confirmation of payee service. And what that is it's an IBAN name check service. So when you, as the customer, want to make a payment, and so you go on your device and you're putting in the details to send the payment, and you want to send it in instantly, you can check that the IBAN matches the account name. And you then will have the control as to whether you decide you want to make that payment or not. Because when you put in the details, the service will respond back with either a full match, a partial match, or no match. And you can then decide if it's a partial match, it's up to you then whether to hit send to affect that payment. If it's a full match, you're confident that the payment won't be misdirected. It'll go to the account that it's intended, but also that the account details are as you expect, and you're comfortable then to make that payment. So that's really important in terms of trying to limit fraud, and that will be rolled out as part of all of the payments as a matter of course. But this is something that's been mandated. It's an EU directive, and it's going to come into effect around this time next year, we think. So that will be an improvement that we'll see on all payments generally. There is one example I can give you of one credit union this year where there was a really unfortunate incident of somebody was buying a house, and her email was hacked, and she had made one payment to a solicitor, but the fraudsters took this email address and they sent her an email requesting her to make another payment, but this time it was to an account in the UK. Now, it was in euro, but they gave details of an account in the UK. It was a NatWest account, and the funds were sent. And she then followed up with the solicitor the following day, and they were surprised. You know, they hadn't sent an email, and they hadn't requested money. So she got in contact with her credit union, and Payac made every effort to contact NatWest, that branch of NatWest, to see if the funds could be returned, but they were gone. So, you know, it's having details where are having the ability to be able to check that the account name and the IBAN match is going to reduce the amount of fraud. And it's one of those safeguards that's coming down the track, so it'll be welcome.
That'll be definitely big help.
Yep.
And actually, one of the things we have lobbied for in the past, and we're still lobbying for it, and it can be done in other European countries, but not yet in Ireland, is when someone is opening an account, we should be checking the passport office, we should be checking the driver's license office to make sure the details they're giving to us are correct. Like there's civil liberties, there's data protection, I think, issues around it, but it can happen in other places in Europe. I also believe we should be able to check the utilities as well. Like so, if we have a fraudulent account open in the credit union, it's because they're going to be cloning. They're going to know there's a house in the area that's empty, so they'll use that as an address, and they'll get a board gosh, and it's easy. PDF, it's very easy to change address details on a PDF. They'll come in with a driving license, and it could be a forged driving license as well. But if we could actually check the registers of the driving license, the passports, and utilities to verify that information that's coming into us is correct, that's another step that would reduce as well. And I think that would actually have a big impact on it. And we'll keep lobbying for it, because that's rather than a central bank issue, that's actually a government issue, that particular one. But it is something. And if you're talking to local politicians, you need to say it to them. Say, why can't people's passports and driving license be verified? We don't need to know the personal details. It's just, does this match, yes or no? That's all we're looking for. We're not looking for the full details on the passport register.
Is it not bigger belief that my understanding is that there are over 2,000 people working in the central bank in Ireland? It begs a big question to me on a regular basis. What the bloody hell are they all doing in there? You know.
Yeah, and again, like if you look at there's a stat. I don't know the exact stat now, but worldwide for money laundering, and obviously, say money laundering is stuff the guards are going to be very interested in. It's a huge important aspect. There's billions being spent by financial institutions on money laundering, and it's not reducing because it's tackling the wrong part of the money laundering problem. It's rather than looking at the root cause of it. It's trying to tackle the symptom rather than treating the root cause of it. And, where there's an awful lot of people in our credit union, in all the credit unions around the country employed in money laundering, around in all different financial institutions, but they're tackling the edge of the problem, not tackling the root cause of the problem. And I agree with you totally. Okay. Is that everyone? That's all the questions for tonight. So thanks. I hope you all found it very good. And I said, Niall and Ciara will be staying back for a few minutes if you want to ask them anything directly. And thanks for coming, and I hope everyone watching on Facebook Live got a good bit from it, and we will have the video afterwards as well. So thank you, everyone.